Socialite, entrepreneur, survivor. This grand old lake has been many things to many people. Above all, she has been a giving lake. Even though she has come a long way from her troubled times, she still has some distance to go. This is evident from the number of species that are listed as threatened or sensitive at Utah Lake, including the bald eagle, Ute ladystresses, and the American white pelican. The Columbia spotted frog, least chub, and the Bonneville cutthroat trout are state-sensitive species. On April 30th, 1986, the Junesucker, which is found nowhere else in the world but Utah Lake, was federally listed as an endangered species with critical habitat. Junesucker numbers had gone from millions in the 1800s to a natural population of less than 1,000 at the time it was listed. As a result, the Junesucker Recovery Implementation Program was formed. While the priority is on Junesucker, the recovery program provides a mechanism to protect other species in the Utah Lake drainage basin and will improve the overall health of Utah Lake and its ecosystem.
We developed the Junesucker Recovery Implementation Program because a number of agencies felt like that if they worked together with the Fish and Wildlife Service and the environmental community, we could find a way to provide both for the protection of endangered species and to provide water that we need here for the citizens of Utah.
The Junesucker Recovery Program was established with two goals. The first goal is to recover the Junesucker so that it no longer requires protection under the Endangered Species Act. And the second goal is to allow the continued development and operation of water facilities for the human population.
I think one of the unique aspects of this program, and I've been involved in a variety of them. I worked with the Puerto Rican government, I worked with the Argentinian government, I worked in New Zealand, I've worked on the Colorado River Recovery Program, and now this Junesucker program. And the thing that strikes me as the most unique about this particular Junesucker program is they are not doing this with blinders. In other words, they are not so focused on just saving this one fish that they don't care about the rest of it. In fact, this program very much operates under the premise that it's the entire lake ecosystem that we really have to understand in order to basically have this one indicator fish species, that population, start to recover.
The recovery program is taking a diversified approach by working to address existing threats to the Junesucker survival. Although research and monitoring efforts have revealed that Junesucker can successfully produce young fish in the Utah Lake system, these young fish rarely make it to adulthood. The focus of the program is to overcome this through a number of actions, such as looking at habitat, or lack thereof, the effects of non-native fish, water flows, and understanding the Junesucker better. The program takes a holistic look at the role each plays in the ecosystem.
We have several individual elements in the recovery program that include things like non-native fish management, the control of carp. We also have water management, where we will try and restore water back into several streams, several tributaries associated with Utah Lake. We will also acquire water that will be stored specifically for Junesucker purposes. And the purpose, again, is to build a better tributary system, a better Utah Lake, and in so doing, save the Junesucker.
The recovery program is conducting research to determine the size of the carp population in the lake. This will allow a better understanding of how to manage the non-native fish population. Other activities include Junesucker breeding and stocking programs, genetic testing, and fish tracking and movement studies. Restoring water flows to the Provo River during the spawning season is also an important component, as are studies for determining how to restore habitat.
One of the challenges in Utah Lake that the program has is restoring aquatic vegetation. And the reason we want to restore that vegetation is it provides a balance to the community. With vegetation restored, it provides cover for young fish so that you have more balanced predator-prey dynamics. It also provides habitat for different types of bugs and insects and smaller fish that historically lived in the lake but don't live there now because the habitat isn't there.
Historically, the June sucker played an important role in Utah Lake's ecosystem. They were an integral part of the food chain. June sucker provided a forage base for Bonneville cutthroat trout, fish-eating birds, and other predators. The June sucker can be considered an indicator species. Scientists observe indicator species to monitor how well an ecosystem is functioning. When these species are not doing well, the ecosystem is not functioning as it should.
The wild population of June sucker, our latest population estimates put the wild population at about 300 individuals. However, we've been able to introduce a number of fish through our stocking efforts. This is part of an ongoing study to look at how small a fish we can stock into the lake and still get survival and return to the spawning run. The less time we keep fish in the hatchery, the better adapted they'll be for the wild out in Utah Lake. They won't become domesticated by being fed in the hatchery all the time. They'll learn how to feed themselves in the lake. Plus, it costs a lot less money to raise a 2-inch fish than it does to raise an 8-inch fish. So we'd be able to stock actually more fish for the same amount of money.
We need to go back and we need to restore fishery to the lake by getting rid of carp. We need to try and find a way to get more water into the lake and down tributaries that are now dry. We need to try and find a way to clean up the water quality of the lake. And so all these things are parts of our program.
Even though Utah Lake's original pristine state would be nearly impossible to restore, her ecosystem can be enhanced through actions like those being conducted by the June Sucker Recovery Implementation Program. However, this requires a long-term commitment. Over 150 years of impacts have led to her current state, so reversing those impacts cannot occur overnight. But progress is being made. As a result of the recovery program's efforts, there are more June sucker in Utah Lake today than there have been in several decades. In addition, more June sucker enter the Provo River each spring to spawn. Scientists now have a better grasp of how the ecosystem functions.
A healthier ecosystem will benefit the public as a whole. And a cleaner Utah Lake means that we'll be able to fish in it, we'll be able to swim, we'll be able to utilize the lake in many more ways than we can today. Many people think that the lake is too polluted to use today. And so we're working on things like water quality, trying to improve the fishing, trying to make the lake a better place, not only for the June sucker, but also for the people as well, the people who will utilize the lake.